Boom! What is up, everybody? Welcome back to Mount Mograph Summit 67, the advanced lightning reveal inside Adobe After Effects. Today we're going to be going over a really cool way to make this little video. You see, it's just a junky, low-quality loop I made, but we're going to go over and make something that's a lot more high-quality, going over a whole bunch of really interesting, I would even go so far as to say advanced, little tips and tricks to put in your other projects or animations and also create this effect. So I think it's going to be a lot of fun, and it shouldn't be too long of a video, so let's see if I can keep my words together and my puppy won't bark. So that's the challenge for today. Let me go ahead and create a new composition here. I'm going to go with the classic 1920 by 1080, 10 seconds long, and it looks like I wound up with a nice dark green background. You can switch that to whatever the heck you want. I'm going to stick with this dark green because it kind of looks cool. So let's go ahead and pick a letter or a number or really anything. And in your character window, let's go ahead and switch it over to the, instead of a fill, let's do a stroke just so we can see the outline of it. And I guess I'm going to go with the number 7 because that's a pretty cool number. So I'm going to go ahead and maybe turn my stroke of this up to 3 just so it's a little bit thicker. And that is pretty good. So I'm going to go ahead and just center this up in my composition here. And let's go ahead and rock on into this effect. So I'm going to maybe scale this up just a touch like that. And let's go ahead and duplicate the 7. Unfortunately, I chose a number, so my name is actually going to switch to 8. It's going to count up for me, which is not helpful. So I'm going to call this 7 front, and then I'll duplicate this one more time and call this 7 back. So let's go ahead and take the original layer and just make it not visible, and we'll select our front and back layers, right click and go down to I guess we have to do one at a time. Go down to create shapes from text, and then we're going to grab the back and go create shapes from text, and then we're going to delete the front and back text options. So what we've done is we've made paths out of our text, so I can scale this up now in the normal shape property panel. So let's go ahead and make the back outlines not visible, and we're going to grab both those layers and type in the word path in our search bar so we have easy access to that. And I'm going to set a keyframe on those actually just so I can just tap U on the keyboard to see them real quick. So with our front outlines selected, you're going to see we have our path options popping up. If you're not seeing anything, it might be that you have this option off, toggling the mask and path visibility. So just turn that on, make sure that is clicked blue or yellow depending on what After Effects you have. Anyway, let's go ahead and just delete one side of this 7. So I'm going to delete the outside, so this little line here, and depending on what letter you chose, you're going to want to do the same thing. And I'm going to delete these points, and we're going to get a nice triangle, and we don't need to worry about this line. We're not going to see that in our final. This is just setting up that effect. So let's go ahead and make this layer not visible and click into our back outlines and do the same thing, except delete the opposite points that we did on the other one. So that's going to be these 3 right on the inside, and we're going to get another nice looking triangle. Look at that. And now when I click both of them, we have 2 wonderfully shaped triangles, but we're going to also have our 7 subtly sitting in there, which is what we want. So this is where the video, I promise, will start to get a little bit cool. We're going to go ahead and create a new solid here, and I'm going to call this layer, I suppose, bolt. It doesn't matter what color it is because we're going to be putting a cool little effect on there. So this effect is oddly enough called advanced lightning, thus the name of this video, but we're going to go ahead and use this in a way that can create this really awesome effect. So I'm going to drag this onto the bolt solid object, and you're going to see all of a sudden Thor has entered our After Effects project, and he has brought lightning with him. So this effect is super awesome, and it's only recently I went in and actually dug through these effects and settings and found out that there is a ton of stuff you can actually do with this effect that's really cool. So the first thing we're going to want to do here is change our lightning type over down to 2-way strike. And when we do this, we're going to be able to now control our lightning, and we're obviously going to tweak quite a bit more than that. That we don't want like a Sith Lord effect. We kind of want this stylized look for our right-on lightning. But now that we have this switched, we're going to go ahead and do another cool little trick. So what I'm going to do is set a keyframe on my origin and direction and press U on my keyboard just so I have quick access to those properties and delete those keyframes. So I'm also going to delete the keyframes on our back and front outlines. That was just so they would pop up nice and quick in our timeline like that. And what we're going to do is actually grab all the vertices from our path and put them onto our origin. So what's really interesting is you can copy those just by Command C on your keyboard on your path and go up into your origin here and do Command V, and you're going to see that we get some keyframes popped up. So let's go ahead and grab our front outlines now and paste those onto our direction. So I'm going to make both these layers not visible for a second, and we're going to kind of check out what's going on. So now our origin and direction are animating, and they look totally nuts, and it doesn't really look like what we want, but basically we just grabbed the vertice points that we need. Obviously, you could have just used like your position tool and made keyframes for the path, but I think it's kind of cool to access properties like that, especially when you have like curved or intricate letters or logos or something, and you just want the actual vertices and tangent in and out points for all that nerd talk there. So anyway, let's go ahead and figure out what the heck is going on with this keyframes here. So I'm just going to slide one bunch over just so I can kind of focus on one. And as you can see, this one's looking pretty good. It kind of lines up to these vertices. It's got off-centered, but not to worry. And it looks like we're just going to go ahead and delete this last keyframe. Because we really only need the side that goes up from here, here, and over to there. So as you can see, it's not dead on, but it does have the right kind of change with everything. So let's take a look at our other set of keyframes, clicking forward on your timeline, and let's see what this one is doing. So this one is looks like an utter mess, but it actually is the right keyframes. They're just kind of backwards. So I'm going to delete this last keyframe because that's for our wonderful little line right here, and it's still playing backwards. So I'm just going to grab this keyframe and move it over, and grab this keyframe and move it over, and then I have this set of keyframes. So now this is kind of lining up to our 7, which is cool. We have some jitters that we'll fix in a second. But what's nice about this is since it's on a solid layer, we can go ahead and just move our solid layer to line up to the start of our 7 down here. And now when we play it, you're going to see that it kind of lines up with our actual animation. So let's go ahead and try to line this up a touch better here. I'm going to maybe move this up like that. And maybe even change the scale. That's kind of nice that since we have this layer to work with, you can. And now it's looking pretty good. So we have our 7 right on like this. Let's see how that's going. Honestly, we can probably scale this up a touch more, but we don't need to worry about it too much. We'll just try to, get the gist of this for the video. It doesn't need to be perfect. So now I have to scale it up just because it was so close on that one. So much for that last comment. Anyway, so now I have this pretty nice little 7 right on effect that I'm pretty happy with it. There goes my dog. If he keeps barking, I'll pause the video so you guys don't have to hear it. So sorry about that in advance. All right, so now that I have these keyframes here, we're going to go ahead and change a couple things in our advanced lightning to get this really awesome effect. So for the time being, let's go ahead and hide our front and back outlines and just focus on this little lightning strike. So as you can see, we have some jitters that start and end. So what we're going to do is actually just crank up our conductivity state here. We're going to go ahead and turn this up a little bit. Let's see. I guess we'll go to something maybe like 35, and let's just see. Now that seems to have gotten rid of our little jitters at the front and end, so we'll let that also stay for the time being. And now let's go ahead into our core settings, and this is going to be that inner little line you see there that's kind of white, and we're going to go ahead and make this kind of fit the style we want a little bit more. So I'm going to turn my opacity up to 100 because I really want to see those lines, and I'm going to pick a color that kind of picks the works with the scene. So I think I had a teal originally, so I'm going to switch that to a teal. It's very subtle in there, but that's all right. And now let's go down into our glow settings and do the same thing. I think this glow radius is pretty big, and this is like the outside little glow. I want this to be nice and thin, like hardly on the outside of our little lines, so just scale that up to whatever looks good to you. I'm going to leave the glow opacity as something around 50% and click into my glow color and also pick this kind of tealy neon color that looks pretty good, and maybe turn down my opacity a little bit as well so we can still make out what's going on. So that looks pretty good. Let's go to the next setting here, alpha optical. I forgot what this did. Kind of blinking. I actually don't think this is important. I don't see anything changing, so I have to assume it doesn't do anything. If you know, leave a comment and that would be cool. I'm just going to set it to 2.5 because I don't see anything happening, so what could go wrong? I feel like that's pretty good. And now for turbulence, that is like how much these will jitter as the time goes on. We don't really need to worry about that. For the decay, we're going to go ahead and actually just, I guess we'll set this to 0 and I'll show you why in a second. And we are going to climb down into the expert settings. Sorry about all these settings. I promise it's worth it. We're going to go ahead and click the decay main core option. And this is going to be helpful when we change our decay. It's actually going to decay from the starting points, so the origin and the direction. And let me go ahead and set that back down to 0 for the time being. And now let's go ahead and start messing around with our complexity. So our complexity is like how crazy the lightning will get. And we probably don't want it to be too intense, kind of like that modern style. So 6 was the default. Let's go ahead and set it down to like 5 or 4. And that looks a lot better, actually. It's kind of there. I mean, if we crank it up, you know, it can start to get nuts. If you turn it down to 1, you can actually get these really cool little lines that I was playing around with before this video. But I'm going to keep it at 5. I kind of like how that looks. The fork distance we don't need to worry about. And now one of the little tricks comes into the fractal type. Let me go ahead and just zoom over here. The fractal type is like the kind of lines it is. So linear is like sharp little points. Let's switch it to semi-linear so it does kind of round out and it'll look nice and like clean, the sharp instead of the sharp lines, if that's something you like. The core drain, that is going to be like how the lines get faded as they come out. So let's crank this up to something medium, maybe 65 seems like a pretty good amount. Fork strength, that's going to be as it jitters, like the lines where they jump out to. So once again, let's set that nice in the middle at 50%. And the fork variation, why don't we do also about 50%? So something like that. I promise these settings are not like anything you need to do. I'm just kind of winging them, but you can start to get some cool stuff. So there we go. We start to have this nice little write-on effect. Obviously, we're not seeing any letters, but now in a second, we will see some letters. So let me go ahead and grab this keyframe right here, right-click it, and go down to rove across time, just so we have the same kind of keyframe as the other two, and that looks pretty good. And now we're going to go ahead and add some expressions to our objects to make this our life so much easier. So let's go ahead and hold Option and click our conductivity state. And what we're going to do is write a little expression. We're going to take the time of the project, so the current time at wherever your key index is. So this is going to be 1 second and 4 keyframes. And I'm going to times that by the index of the layer. So that would be 1 in this case. So you're just going to get the time. But when you duplicate this effect, it's going to be a different thing. So you're going to, in a way, have a random seed. So now when I unclick this, you're going to see that we have our little change here. It's nothing too crazy. I'm actually going to put this down a little bit lower. So now it actually is being timed by something. And we're getting a nice little change here. And maybe I can turn this up a little bit more. So there we go. I'm cool with that. That's kind of just like some random seed stuff. And why don't we add another little change to things in our, I guess it would be, let's go ahead to our decay options. Where would that be? Right here. So I'm going to hold Alt and click that. And on this decay option, we're going to also use our index to make a nice like random change. The wiggle is random, but it's kind of nice to just know it's going to be really different. So let's go ahead and type wiggle, which is a default After Effects expression that is really cool. And we're going to take the index, and the index for this is going to be how many times per second that this change is going to happen. So we're going to change this by, I guess, 50%, or 50 points of whatever the option is you're adding this to. So for our decay, we're going to crank that up to 50 3 times a second, and it's going to be random. So I'm going to go ahead and make a semicolon, and there our expression is. And now we have it'll like flash automatically because the decay is automatically getting turned on based on the time of the project. So now all I can do is pretty much duplicate this object drag it over, and we're going to get a totally different kind of lightning based on using our layer indexes, because one would be 3, another would be 4, and so on and so forth. So that's really cool because when you have this write-on effect, it makes our life so much easier. So let me go ahead and now bring in our 7, because I promise I didn't forget about it, and we want to see what's going on with our 7. So with this one, once again, we're going to use some cool little wiggle expressions to kind of make our life easier. So let's go ahead and grab our opacity, I believe. We're going to turn this down to, I guess, 0. Seems like a good number. We're going to hold Option and click our keyframe little stopwatched guy so we can add an expression here. We're going to type in wiggle, and we're going to do, let's go ahead with 30 times per second, because we want some dramatic flashes. And we're going to do something like the change would be 50, because right now we're at 0. So now we're going to have this like flashing text, as you can see, which is pretty cool. So it doesn't line up perfectly with our lightning right now. That was my own fault. So why don't I just go ahead and actually scale this guy up a touch like that, and just line him up. I'll cheat it. And look, it's perfect. So now we have this cool flashing effect with our lightning already. So now what we can do with this is actually grab a glow effect, and I promise it's going to keep getting cooler. I promise. Stick with me on this. I'm going to drop the 7 or the glow onto the 7 effect, and now as it's flashing, we're going to get a bit of a glow. So let's change some of these settings. I'm going to turn my glow threshold down so it'll just be more. It'll grab more stuff. I'll turn my my radius down to maybe 19 and my intensity up, and just leave it like that. It doesn't need to be too crazy. We just want to see like that kind of random flash deal. So there we go. It's looking pretty cool. We have some nice random flashes happening. And now what we're going to do is duplicate our bolt. So I'm going to duplicate this layer, press U on my keyboard to see those keyframes, and we're not going to want them to come on at the same time. So let's go ahead and make some easy ease on these keyframes here. I'm going to just click that, add some quick easing. It doesn't really matter what, just so it has a little bit of speed and it's not like a nice linear start, or a not nice linear start, I should say. So there we go, we have that. And now this is something that you totally can do randomly, because it works to your advantage. Let's go hold ahead and select all the keyframes you want to change. Hold Option and just drag out. This is supposed to work. There we go. So drag one of the last keyframes on the left or right side, and you can hold Option and actually like resize it like this. So now it's like a different time completely from our first one. So that looks pretty cool. I'm actually going to select these keyframes, right click it, and go down to Keyframe Assistant, Time Reverse Keyframes, and now it's going to be coming from the other side, which is kind of cool. So now we're going to go ahead and just duplicate both these layers. We're going to drag them up and drag them over a little bit. Press U on your keyboard, and now we're going to go ahead and, you know, go a little crazy. We can go ahead and change this stuff, hold Option and drag out. Maybe even change these roving keyframes a little bit. Maybe make those easing. This is where, like, you know, we're making lightning, so we can be kind of random. So there we go. We have some nice lightning effects kind of happen. And this is like one of those things, like, since we set up our expressions to be based off our index, we're going to be able to get like nice random animations for each one. So I'm going to go ahead and duplicate this layer one more time. I'll press U, and this will be the last one. I'm going to go ahead and do this, right click, Keyframe Assistant, Time Reverse Keyframes, drag that over. Maybe even start it sooner. So something like this, I guess, you know, we'll keep working with it, but that looks pretty cool. It's nice and random. So now what we want to do is it to be like just nice and abrupt ending. So let's go ahead and make none of them visible except for one of them. And once it gets to the top of the 7, so right about there, we're going to go ahead and just do Option left bracket to cut the layer just like this. So it just kind of pops out and we don't have to worry about it. We'll go up to the next layer and do the same. So once it hits the bottom, Option click it, and we'll just keep going up and do this so we have that nice crisp end. So there we go. Even there is fine. You know, your eye won't catch it, which is the cool part about animation. And then this one, let's see. We don't want it to show that I'm not actually, I didn't have the right shape for the 7, so I'm going to go ahead and cut that out a little early. And then we'll go up to our last bolt. I should have probably called it Lightning. And let's go ahead and click Option left bracket one more time. So there we go. We have a nice little flickering animation. I guess I need to do this for the beginning too. So I'll wait for it to start a little bit. Cut it in right there. and do it for these layers as well. Let's see. Sorry, I forgot that step. Let's go ahead, drag these over. I'm gonna be random with it because whatever. And there we go. We have a nice little flicker. Lightning, that was a RAM preview, so it's not gonna be that fast in real time. But there we go. So that's pretty cool. Now we're gonna go ahead and make this effect even more awesome. Let's go ahead and start working with our text. So I'm gonna go ahead and duplicate this text and drag it up to the top here. And as soon as all these lightning points kind of hit their end, you know, I want it to flash, like turn on like, you know, a street lamp or something would at night. So I'm just going to drag that over so it also kind of cuts in. So the issue with this is our opacity. When we look at our opacity expression, we're turning it down from 0. So I don't want it to be like that because, you know, I want this to be the reveal. I actually want to see what the letter is. So let's go ahead and make this a little bit more subtle because that is pretty intense as it sits right now. So I'm going to go ahead and turn this down to 6 by maybe like 10. Once again, kind of random numbers, but I basically still want it to change and flicker, but not nearly as much. So obviously we're still changing from 0, so what we're going to want to do is actually set some keyframes. The wiggle will still work with whatever your root number is, so I'm going to turn it up from 0 and set a keyframe that turns it up to, you know, maybe like 40 or something. So now it's going to kind of flicker on and still have a little bit of that jitter, which looks cool. So I'll just copy these 2 keyframes. First add a little easing and just paste them here. Right click, keyframe assistant, time reverse keyframes, drag it over a touch, and so now it'll fade out and we'll end up getting that nice little loop. So that looks cool. And now to make this even more interesting, what we need to do is really start, like, you know, kind of pumping up this animation. Like, sure, it turns on, I get that, but you know, I'm not really sold on it. It doesn't seem that bright. So let's go ahead and duplicate this layer one more time. I'm going to drag this option. Actually, I'm going to press U to see my keyframes. I'm going to turn off all the opacity effects and just crank this effect up all the way. I'm going to go into my little text controls here, and I'm going to turn this down to 1. So now we have this, well, maybe 2. 1 was too much. So now we have this super bright little line. I'm going to turn my glow threshold down. Glow radius, I also want to keep nice and down. So now we have this really bright thing. I'm actually going to click this option we just worked with the fade in opacity effects and turn my radius up a little bit. So now we kind of have a glow outside of the text. And what I'm going to do is, as this hits, I'm going to wait a little bit of time and just kind of snap in that bright one. So now it's like fully on and we're still getting that background flicker. So let's go ahead and just take a little second to preview what's going on here. We have all that. Pretty cool, and it turns on and it still has that background flicker, as you can see, which is cool. So what we're gonna do is duplicate this text effect that we just did, and I'm actually going to drag this back in time and make just like the smallest little bit of it. You know, it needs to be no more than like 2 or 3 keyframes, and I just want this to kind of flash on for a second, just like cut in and out real quick. I'm going to duplicate this layer throughout our beginning portion. So, you know, we have that flickering, but we also have like a little spot of a bright flash. So now when I play it, we're going to have our little flashes throughout as this object turns on. So I'm going to preview this one more time. And I think we're actually just about wrapping this animation up, which is cool. So there we go. We have it flash on, and you know, once it's on, I think it would be cool to still have some flashes going and maybe flash as it turns out. So it's kind of a transition back to what we're doing because we want this like perfect loop. So luckily, once again, we're going to use those expressions we wrote in the beginning just by grabbing a couple of those bolt layers and duplicating them and dragging them above our other objects all the way. And actually, it probably only need like, you know, 4 of them. I don't know if 5 will be necessary. And I'm just going to grab these, press U on my keyboard to see my keyframes, and drag them over in time. So once again, we're going to do that cool little trick of grabbing your objects here and holding Option and just scaling back those keyframes. So now this is faster on our transition out. And I'm going to right click them, keyframe assistant, time reverse keyframes, just so now it's kind of like a unique one from our previous set. And so now as it flashes out, let's see where we're at with things. I'm going to press U to see to minimize everything. And I want to see my opacity here. So, you know, as it's turning out, or turning off, excuse me, I want these to actually be a little bit over. something like this. So we have all of our flashes. I can probably cut some of these short. We can kind of do whatever because we just want like fast little flashes to keep the viewer interested. And then let's go ahead and just move our work area over and have our work area start. Let's see when the 7 starts to flash, something like that. So let's go ahead and press U to see our preview, and we'll see how our little loop works. And that should actually be a wrap on the video. So let's see here. We have a flash on. We are getting a little bit of a mess up right at the end here because our keyframes come in early. So I'm just going to go ahead and cut this. So like as it's actually moving, it'll be in. So I'm going to cut that too. Just like this. Yeah, you just have to look at where your keyframes start because you don't want it to like just be sitting at the bottom like this little dude down here is. So I'm going to cut this one as well. And there we go. It kind of flashes for a second and then we are back. So there we go. That was the Summit 67 Advanced Lightning Reveal. We covered some cool little expressions you can throw on your other effects and properties, as well as the super awesome two-way strike. So I hope you had fun with this video. I hope you thought this effect was cool, and I hope you can use it for your own little stuff. So anyway, this was Matt from Mograph. I'm going to give a little round of applause to my dog for not barking too much throughout this video. And thanks for checking out Mograph. If you had fun with this video, like, subscribe, and give a high five. Peace out. I'll catch you guys later. See ya.